Everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. We have another exciting episode for you today. We have Steve Vest on with us, and we're going to tap into his lived and learned knowledge throughout the industry and hopefully pass some of that information along to you. So stick with us. We have a great episode lined up for you right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, Steve?
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was nice meeting you at the freight event a couple weeks ago and running into you and learning what you guys do with the Miles and Mentors podcast. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, same here, man. I can't wait to dive in with you. And that was a really fun event, man.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I love when they put those things on and someone else pays the bill, right? Like, freight people can get a little bit crazy when that's the case. Don't ever open a bar for freight people, you know?
Well, I kind of put my foot in my mouth there and I paid the bill, right? So I got there and I didn't know it was necessarily an open bar. And I just went up to the bar and I bought a freaking drink and then went out and they started handing out drinks. I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you got one you had to pay for, but there's a lot more had other than that, I'm sure. So
most definitely. No, it was a fantastic time. And, to that, well, we can get into the whole networking aspect. Before we dive into that, man, I want to kind of get some introductions in here. If you wouldn't mind, who are you and what's your role in the industry today?
Yeah, I'm Steve Vest. I'm the owner and founder of Nationwide Equipment Transportation. We're a freight broker based here in Kansas City. This is actually our 20th year in business. You can kind of see just blurred out, but we work from home now. We used to have an office and a couple years ago decided to send everybody home and started hiring people all over the country to kind of work underneath of us as freight agents. Kind of went viral on TikTok a year ago. And so a lot of people have reached out to me to kind of share some of the knowledge that we have in the industry. And so that's kind of why I'm on the podcast today. But at the same time, I really want to educate smaller carriers and folks that are maybe interested in getting into the industry from the broker's perspective, but also as a former owner operator myself, as well as my parents were in trucking for a really long time as a kid. My stepfather passed away when I was young in college and they had to sell the company, but I've been around semis, been in semi accidents, been around it my whole life. It's just kind of in my blood, I think. So.
Fantastic, man. You touched on so many points there I want to dive in with, but let's take it all the way back to the beginning. You mentioned some family history and stuff. So what is it that got you in logistics in the very first place?
Pure chance and dumb luck, I guess, maybe. But for real, though, my parents being in the trucking industry, obviously, I was around it, but went to college, was getting a business degree, and just happened to start working in the air freight industry, which was sales, and got promoted, moved around and started working for a smaller broker in Iowa, and then moved back to Kansas City and started our own company 20 years ago. But really, it's just letting the universe kind of provide for me. And I really didn't have a plan. It just kind of happened, But
that's fantastic, man. You had 20 years in the industry. That's I guess 20 years with your company, even longer in the industry. Yeah. It's a really impressive run. What's the industry look like today compared to when you first got in? Like, what's the big differences that you see?
Well, I have less hair than when I first started, but other than that,
is that because of the industry?
Yeah, 100% from the industry. But I still have a smile on my face. I love what I do. That's the only reason I've been able to stay in the industry for this long, obviously, because this is an industry that will burn you out really quickly. But for me, I just wake up every day. I love what I do. I love helping customers. I love talking to carriers and drivers. But the industry has changed completely up until like the last 5 years, maybe before COVID. All the fraud that came into the industry and things that were happening and loads getting stolen and double brokering and all that stuff we can talk about has just really changed the industry over the last 5 years. The first 5 or 10 years of our business was more manual processes, and now technology is taking over. And those that aren't getting involved in that technology are going to get left behind. And so it's just a really interesting time right now. And it's got me, my juice is flowing again after all this time, really delving into the AI stuff and the tech stuff that we're developing within our own freight brokerage, but also seeing what's going on in the industry is really cool. So.
Fantastic, man. Definitely want to dive into all that. I mean, we talked a little bit about like carrier 411 and the fraud and all that. I think that's huge. Again, the target audience here is those guys that are currently company drivers venturing out into being owner operators and growing those fleets. And taking that on as a company driver, there's obviously a ton you got to worry about, a ton you got to know, but then taking that to the next step of actually running the company is a whole nother ball game. And especially for those guys that are behind the driver's seats while doing it, it's a big feat. There's a lot to know. There's a lot to take on. But before I forget, man, I want to dive in on kind of what you mentioned about your TikTok channel and, the move to bringing the office home during COVID, because I saw so much of that. And it seemed like, at least for me, I noticed so much more of the logistics industry kind of hit that social platform. And I think that's been massive. Just because you learn so much, you connect so much, and we talk about mentorship a lot. And I think you can kind of get a collective mentorship by being able to just interact and watch so many people out there. How is that? I mean, what got you on TikTok in the first place, and how has that really, connected your business and helped, the
Yeah.
industry?
I mean, to be honest with you, again, pure damn luck, I guess, more than anything. But really, I hired a social media person in January of 2020 from the University of Kansas, Jayhawks Rock Chalk. And she came in and she was like, "You need to get on TikTok." And I was like, "No, that's young people dancing and have, whatever." I was like, "I'm not doing that." But she
Right.
convinced me, and I started watching a little bit of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he was talking about it. So I started doing it. And like you mentioned, I actually wanted to be a teacher when I went to college to start. And so I just love teaching people. And so my
Yes.
20 years of experience plus, I just started telling people about the industry, teaching them about what my experiences have been, things that have happened in my life with trucking side, freight brokering, whatever. And it just took off. People really resonated with it. But I think also there was a big need from people like what you're talking about, owner operators that were wanting to get into the industry as a company driver, becoming an owner operator, or owner operators that were just starting and struggling because they didn't have a plan when they first started. Right. So
Yeah.
I think as a business owner myself, a founder, I've been through it, ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of everything. And you really learn a lot along the way. But if you don't have a plan when you start a business, you're going to fail. And so I think a lot of company drivers think, oh, it's easy. I can just get a truck and then I'm going to get freight given to me and I'm just going to make all this money. But there's a lot more that goes into it, and understanding the industry about, how some brokers won't work with you for 90 days, 180 days, a year, 2 years, and how you have to build that book of business up over a year or two. And you better have some money in the bank to do that, and not doing it the wrong way and then getting in trouble. So that's what I started sharing a lot about on my channel. It kind of just took off. And, if you're not following me, definitely get a hold of me somehow. You can look us up online. So
100%. And we'll touch on that at the end too, and we'll make sure to get all that in these show notes as well, so everyone can find you there. But I'm interested to dive into that, man, because to the fact I'm looking at your TikTok channel, you share so much information. I think that's so valuable to the industry today. But there's so much out there that guys getting into that position as a company owner don't know but need to know. So I'm curious to dive in on some of those pain points. Like, I saw a video you talked about Carrier 411, and that really makes me think, the reputation management point of a company. And, if you don't really look at that and manage that, how quickly that can sink a company.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Why does it matter to a carrier?
Well, I've had a lot that should matter to any business that's out there, but the carrier side of it's very fragile. And if you're coming into it and you're only going to be working with brokers, you better be able to have that relationship be good. And that one report on a carrier 411 can put a carrier out of business. I'm one that's really advocating not to use it the way some people are using it. And it's not oh, he was late to delivery, I'm going to put a carrier 411 on him. It shouldn't be that way. It should be just for fraud and for stolen loads and for things that are bad in the industry. Driver showed up drunk or high or whatever, like put that stuff out there, but don't put driver was, late to pickup or late to delivery, because that really does hurt their businesses. But if you're thinking about getting into the industry, that reputation management thing is really a key, because building relationships is what this industry is all about. It has been since the 60s, 70s, 80s, when my parents were doing their thing. But now it's becoming less and less with all the tech, but still, there's still a relationship piece there. And so being on time, showing up in uniform, having, decent looking clothes on, not wearing flip-flops, being prepared, PPE and all that goes a long way with the reputation for a owner operator. But, a lot of them get in and they don't know how to find loads. They don't know where they're going to find loads or who they're going to connect with. They don't have a plan. And so then they start what they call try to age their MC so that they can get loads for more people quicker. And so then they go to this guy and they lease on underneath of him and they start pulling loads under his MC while they still have an MC, which is not legal. And then they do it the wrong way. And then they get in trouble, they get caught, they get a carrier 4-1 for double brokering. And then basically, essentially, they're out of business before they ever started. Again, right. Understanding that it's going to take time to build a book of business in this industry, whether you're a broker or a carrier, and just doing it the right way will help you over the long haul to build a reputable company and keep your reputation solid and communication and all that stuff that goes along with it. So
definitely. And I mean, there's so much to dive into and, unpack in that, especially with all the fraud, like we were talking about today. We hear about that left and right. And so much issues with that. I'm hopeful with all the tech hitting the industry. And, we recently did another interview that we were kind of talking about that because tech can be a bit of a double-edged sword, right? There's a lot of fraud in tech. But at the same time, I think technology hitting the logistics industry will bring a lot of light to areas that it's needed. So I'm hopeful that is going to be a good thing coming.
Yeah, but just the FMCSA getting their tech up and running and getting the front door closed, which we were in Indianapolis at the Broker Carrier Summit, and he was talking about how they're closing the front door now so they can't even get in to start it. So that's a huge part of it. And then if we can do the part of the brokers, and there's still brokers out there not using any tech at all, still being very old school. And those are the ones that are going to be susceptible to that. And then also just carriers being old school and not understanding what to look for. So watching myself and other folks on social media across different platforms and just learning as much as you can before you dip your toe in the water as an owner operator is vitally important right now. Because if you jump in and you get double brokered or you get too good to be load, rate, you get a $4,000 rate when it should be $2,000, that's probably too good to be true. And you're probably not going to get paid. That can put you out of business. And if you don't know what to look for and you're not paying attention, you will get burned in the first month or two very easily in this game right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's great points you put out there. And it's one of those industries too. It's like everything in this industry, you can make good money, but everything also costs a lot of money. There's a lot of money on the line. So little mistakes go a long way.
Yeah.
Within that, we're talking about tech and stuff and, having that foundation before you dive in the water, any that you would suggest that a driver be familiarized with before they take that leap?
Yeah. I mean, just being able to vet your brokers that you're working with as far as their credit rating, who you're working with. So a lot of folks use factoring companies. So, the big guys out there, you can factor your invoices, but what they're really good at is making you be aware of the broker that you're working with is going to pay or not. And so that's really important because you want to get paid, obviously. Understanding your fuel, your cost per mile, and then just a tech platform. If you're going to work with direct shippers, make sure you understand their credit history, doing credit checks, and not just being greedy. I think a lot of times in this industry, when people get in trouble from the carrier side, the broker side, it's about greed and they just see dollar signs and they don't stop to do the due diligence they need to do to make sure that they're not going to get burned and not get paid, because the worst thing you can have is $40,000 worth of invoices that don't get paid, and then you have to try to go to court, and that will really just sink you really quick. So you have to, cash is king in all businesses, but in this industry, it's vitally important that you understand how to give credit to people, whether that's a direct shipper or a broker. And there are tech platforms out there that can help you do that. And again, like you mentioned, it does cost money,
100%. Now, you had mentioned a little bit about MC numbers, and I know when you're going from that company driver and you don't have to worry about all that, and you become a company owner, you're getting DOTs and MCs and all that. Tell us a little bit about the importance there and kind of what to watch out for.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the video that went viral was me just saying, what's your MC number to carriers as they were calling in to book loads with us. So that's kind of what my tagline was. But the MC number is not going away. The FMCSA, when I was in India a couple of weeks ago, did announce that that's not going to happen in October like they were thinking. This is probably the second or third time that they've rolled that out and said they're not going to, there's just too much involved with it that it's not going to happen. But, just understanding what you need to start at first, the MC and DOT number, if you're going to be intrastate or interstate, what insurances you need, that's vitally important. Your your drug and alcohol, your training programs, your safety programs, and really understanding your safety program and understanding how that score can affect you getting loads as well, because a lot of brokers and shippers are looking at that now, like, hey, what's their safety score? What if it goes down, we're not going to use them anymore. And so again, going back to that reputation thing, like, it's vitally important that you run a clean shop in this industry for as long as you possibly can. One wreck will put you out of business. Your reputation will also put you out of business.
100%. Yeah, it sounds like definitely a lot to keep an eye on there. One thing that I'm thinking about, you had mentioned Broker Carrier Summit. I know we just had one recently. How important and what change has that made to the industry, kind of connecting those two parties in that manner?
I think it's great. It's a great event. I've been to the Kansas City one. I was in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago. The next one's in Orlando at the end of October. I definitely recommend anybody get signed up for it and head out there. There was some deals made between carriers and brokers for 300 truckloads a year at the summit that I was at. So there's been some great, deals dropped there. Carriers being able to meet someone face to face, right, and understand you're a real person, and that, yeah, you're not a fake fraud, double broker from overseas. This is a real carrier here in the US that has assets. As a broker, that's what we're looking for. And as a carrier, looking for reputable brokers. So, if the broker's there and they shake my hand and like, hey, yeah, I really want to work with you. What lanes do you have? Let's do some business. So, but there is real conversations going on there too, right? Like we mentioned with the Carrier 411, brokers don't put stupid reports up on carriers because it just hurts the industry. And we got to have our carriers. We need them. If we don't have carriers, we don't have a job as brokers, right? So that's some of the conversations that are going on at those events that I really enjoy. Is the carriers have a perception that brokers all make 40 to 50%. I'm on my social media being very transparent and telling people what the averages are in the industry, and you can look it up. It's 15%. Yes, sometimes we do make 40 and 50% because we misquoted, customer gave us too much money, or driver just did it really cheap. But that doesn't happen on the average. So those kind of real conversations are happening at these events, and that's why it's important. Like when the networking event we did, I was there with other brokers that are my competitors, and we were talking shop, and it was great, because that's what it's all about. It's about learning about the industry and doing the best we can for the shippers that we're all here to service, right?
100%. I'd love to see it, especially talking about, being there alongside your competitors and stuff, because at a certain point, it's not just about business, but it's about the industry as a whole. And, coming together and being able to be in that same room, I think does improve the industry as a whole, and it's going to make it better for everyone. And at the end of the day, I mean, the country, that is the backbone of the country. So we need it to be in better shape than it was yesterday, right?
Yeah, and we all need to sometimes commiserate our sorrows in this industry. So it doesn't matter if you're a carrier or broker, we all have stories. And so it's good to have someone there to talk to. And that's why social media has been nice for a lot of us in the industry, is because we can now start talking to other people and sharing stories and saying, hey, it's not just me, right? It's everybody's going through the same. Blitz Week was a couple weeks ago, right? And that was right during the event we went to, and all the brokers to a T were like, man, that was rough. It wasn't just me, a small guy. It was the big guys there. They were talking about like, bro, like it was bad. And I was like, probably one of the worst ones we've been through. And so, yeah, it was good conversations had with a lot of folks. So
Most definitely. For the carrier side, I feel like it's one of those things. If your wheels aren't turning, you're not making money. But when you have the opportunity to get to some kind of an event like that, I think it's huge. Social media definitely has its play, and being involved as you can. For one, there's so much to learn just from, others in the industry that's going on, even in the space you're talking about, talking to other brokers and stuff, hearing the situations they deal with, you learn from it. You're like, okay, this is what they dealt with. This is how they handled it. Drivers can do that exact same thing, but also being able to make it somewhere in person and make those, face-to-face connections, I think ultimately at the end of the day makes a huge difference in your business.
yeah, I mean, I've networked for years. I mean, ever since I started in this industry, I've been going to industry events or even small business events so I can learn as an owner, bettering myself. And really, as an owner, if you're going to be an owner operator, you have to treat it as a business. And I think a lot of them kind of don't look at it that way. I think they all just want to still drive, but they want to make more money. And so I think that's the biggest downfall that they have, is they don't understand that the word owner operator has owner in it for a reason, because you are now the sole responsible person for making sure that you are successful. And if you don't plan properly, you will fail. And in most businesses, only, well, I don't know what the failure rate is in 5 years. It's like 80%.
Right.
I guess trucking companies is probably worse than that. I mean, it's probably almost 100% failure rate. You know, they say if you want to make $1 million in trucking, start with 2 million. That's a real thing, you
Yeah.
know. So you have to be careful and understand your numbers very well as an owner operator, and understand you're the owner. There's no one else there to back you up at that point. So just be careful, because people have lost their livelihoods. I mean, there's a guy I follow, Blue Ribbon Logistics. Chris is a great guy.
Yeah.
On TikTok, and he talks about how he failed as an owner operator. And it wasn't until he started working with the guy he's with now that he learned really what his mistakes were, you know. And so go follow him, listen to him, because he is really smart in what he talks about. And you can fail really bad. Like, you can lose your whole life. You can lose your house. You can lose your family. I mean, this is the industry where I think businesses that fail cost them more than just, you know, going out and starting a taco truck or something like that. You know, like, you can recover from that. You know, going out and buying a $350,000 truck and having these expenses, it can really, really hurt you financially for the rest of your life. So you just have to be really careful.
Most definitely. And shout out, you talked about the Blue Ribbon guys. We've had both those on this podcast before. Fantastic guys.
Yeah.
Fountain of knowledge. So definitely go and check them out as well. You know,
knowledge is free, right? The internet, the social media thing, it's all free. YouTube, whatever. Just listen and learn from everybody, because it's free. And that's what's great about it, right? You don't have to pay.
100%. Well, and you know, for those guys, we're talking about, you know, being that owner operator and being in the truck is hard. I mean, any other business in the world has, you know, an office, a staff, etc. So much of these cases, these guys are the office, they are the staff, and they're trying to manage all this while behind the wheel.
Yeah.
It's insane. But at the same time, the silver lining to that is there is so much time to learn. And I know, you know, it's like we'd love to listen to something else and take the time away. But when you can, between the podcast, between everything else, there's so much knowledge out there that will help you move the needle to, you know, not only make a firm foundation, but grow that foundation into something amazing. What you are doing with the TikTok and everything else you're putting out there, there's so much knowledge loaded in that, even from those micro situations, just to see how you dealt with that, what you experienced, what's out there to look for, to keep on mind that maybe you just would have never thought about before. But, you know, embracing that and soaking that in is going to make a huge difference to how you manage and how you grow your business at the end of the day.
You have 10-hour resets, you have 34-hour resets, you have 11 hours behind the wheel. You can make yourself learn a whole lot of stuff by listening to podcasts and stuff, instead of listening to the radio all the time and actually listening to books on tape or whatever. Like, you can really learn what it takes to run a business and be successful and all that. And most of it's free. So definitely go out and do that and make yourself a better person, you know, every minute of every day. So
fully agree. I'd like to play a little bit of devil's advocate here. Now, back from the broker side, what are some of the red flags that you would say you look out for a carrier? I think it's important to touch on that, because it's going to bring a carrier up to know, well, this is stuff I need to look out for, make sure my business is, you know, on the right side of.
Yeah, I mean, so there are a lot of things that we look at right now, especially, and a lot of it has to go back to the aging the MC, you know, not waiting out the 90 or 180 days or year or 2 years. And so we don't give out the answers to the test anymore, because we did that and the double brokers and fake carriers caught up to us. But what I will say to you is that we do look at safety scores. We do look at your, you know, drug and alcohol, wrecks, that kind of stuff, to see if that is a carrier that we want to work with. If you're over, I think the national average is somewhere in the 27% out of service. If you're well over that, you're probably not going to get as many loads from brokers because of that. They're going to look at that and say, okay, you're over 30%, 40%, maybe, that, you know, we're not going to work with you. And so you got to work really hard to repair that reputation. The other thing is just, if you're working or trying to work with a dispatch service, please know who you're working with. A lot of these owner operators don't understand that these guys are bad actors, bad players. They get a call from a guy and they promise them they can find them loads. And they do find them loads. That's great. But what they don't understand is that when you give them access to your packet or your FMCSA, then now they can go out and set up other brokers that you're not even familiar with as a dispatch service. And they start double brokering loads from the load board with their other partners. And so when you get tied to one of those folks, especially in our company, you will be blacklisted forever. There's no way to get around that, because you ended up doing business with someone you shouldn't have. and we can see that relationship. So like with emails and phone numbers, they're all the same, and we can kind of tie them all together. Like, these are the bad players. We understand where it started from. So now we can see all of the connecting the dots now with all the technology that we have. And so we can do that with a click of a button. And a lot of carriers don't understand that. And they call us and they're like, hey, why can't you work with us? And I explained to them, the dispatch service that you hired is a known double broker, and we're not going to work with you because of that, because we don't know that they're not going to get access to our technology platform, to our rate confirmations that they can duplicate and all that stuff. So just protect your business as hardcore as you can. Don't let people have access to your authority. Don't give them access to your FMCSA, your passwords, your usernames, anything like that, because unless you know that dispatcher and they work with you in your own state and your own, you met them and you shook your hands and you're like, hey, yeah, I'm going to work with you. Sorry about that. That's the number one really big red flag right now that we're able to see. Obviously, the $100,000 cargo, $1 million liability, maybe some brokers want workers' comp, those kind of things. But the safety scores, are you working with a dispatcher that we don't approve of that's linked to double brokering? That's going to get you in trouble really quickly.
Yeah. We touched on a little bit here, when you make that leap from company driver to owning the company and kind of everything's on your shoulders. Finances are a huge issue, right? Especially in this industry. You can make good money, but it also takes a lot of money. And if you don't manage that correctly, you're getting sunk pretty quick. With your industry experience and what you've seen over the years, what is some good financial advice that you would have for somebody both getting into being an owner operator and trying to grow that fleet? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about factoring there. Is that a viable option, or kind of what do you need to look at finance wise to be sustainable in the industry today?
I say start small and grow, right? Like, if you are jumping in brand new and you've never been a driver, then starting in a Sprinter van, moving to a box truck, then maybe moving to a 53-foot dry van, going to the flatbed side afterwards, maybe oversized loads. So the guys that are getting paid the most have been in the industry the longest. And so you have to realize that they grew in the industry and learned a lot. So knowledge is power, and also knowledge is money. And you're going to get paid a lot more with the more experience you have, because they can rely on you. You have the experience, that kind of thing. But starting small and not going above your means right away. If there's a lot of guys that go out and get 4 or 5 trucks because they're $35,000 and they think, okay, I can make this much money with 5 trucks, I'm going to be rich by the end of the year. Well, it doesn't really work out that way. Start with one, get a good driver in it, build that up till you can pay for another truck. Then you get another truck, and you just keep growing slowly. It's slow and gradual in this industry will get you a lot further than trying to get all the bag up the front. Like, you got to work your way up in this industry. So work your way up through different equipment types and different levels of experience, but also work your way up in a number of equipment types you get. The second thing is, like you mentioned, factoring. Get out from underneath of it as fast as you can. After you learn and get the relationships built, it's great to start with that, but that 1% a month compounded over the year is actually 12% if you think of it that way. I never really used to think about that, because I was like, it's 1%, or 2% or 3%, but really it's 1 or 2 or 3% every month of your revenue. And so if you add that up at the end of the year, it's actually like 30% of your revenue at the end of the year if it's 3%. So you just have to be really careful with your cash in that regard. Secondly is start with cash in the bank. I think the biggest people that fail, they start with nothing, and then they start getting desperate. And so they take desperation and loads that they shouldn't, and their cost per mile, they don't understand that. And then they're just chasing dollars to pay the bills. And then that becomes very stressful, and basically you can't operate that way.
Right.
It's not good for you as a driver. And so, that's start with money in the bank. Don't try to jump into it with nothing. I've seen a lot of people jump into even wanting to be a freight broker with no money in the bank. And I try to tell them, like, you need to have 3 to 6 months money in the bank to pay your bills, because it's going to take you that long to build a book of business, maybe even a year, to be able to pay your bills and live, not live paycheck to paycheck, right? Like, you can make a lot of money being a truck driver. I mean, there is a lot of money to be made. If you see most trucks, 53 footers are running between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, or a week. That's $50,000 a month. That's $600,000 a year. That's pretty good. And I know the expenses are going to cut into that. Probably over half of that is going to be expenses, but there's a lot of money to be had.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people then also, just like young people, they see this big check, they get a $12,000 check in the mail, and then they go out and spend it on stuff.
Yeah.
And they don't put money back for a rainy day. And so that's what I think a lot of carriers are seeing right now, is that the money after COVID was so good. They were
Mhm.
making a lot of money because they jumped in when the market was super high, and now the market's low and they didn't save for a rainy day. And the rates went back down to normal. And now they're like, oh my God, I can't make it because I've got all these payments. I'll share a story with you real quick. When I
Yeah.
was in the air freight world, it happened to us. I worked for a company called Emory Air Freight, and they got bought out by UPS years later. But Emory Air Freight was one of the biggest freight forwarders and still is to this day. It's just rebranded under UPS. But um, we had a really good year. 9/11 happened. They had built all these buildings from 97 to 99, 2000s. They built all these brand new Taj Mahals. We had all this nice stuff. We had all these nice planes. We had like 100 plus planes flying, and we were doing really well. Well, they didn't save for that rainy day. And then 9/11 happened, and people changed from air freight to ground freight real quick.
Yeah.
And that really hurt them bad. And they didn't recover from it. And they had to end up selling the company for pennies on the dollar. They really hurt their business with that kind of model. But that's what a lot of people fail. They think, oh, I'm going to go out and get that shiny new truck because I have all this money now that I'm making on this $35,000 truck that and we do it with our own self. We go out and buy brand new cars all the time, even though we have a paid off car that drives just fine. But we'll go out and buy another car and get ourselves more in debt. So just be careful with that. Really be careful with the money flowing in your business, because there's a lot of money going to be in your bank account. And it's really tempting to go out and say, oh man, I'm going to take $20,000 and go buy me a new car.
Yeah.
Keep that money in the bank. Cash is king. It will help you in the long run.
100%. Fantastic advice there. Now, another thing that we're hearing so much about in the industry, we talked a little bit about earlier, fraud. And if you get on the wrong side of that, it's another thing that can cost you big time. Going a little bit, if you don't mind, tell us kind of what are you seeing in the industry today? I mean, we hear constantly about things of double brokering and so forth, but what are you seeing and how do you see we move forward in the industry to really fight this fraud?
I think it's a team effort. And so those events we talked about, everybody talking about it on social media helps, and getting the tools needed to be able to vet carriers properly as a broker, but also carriers being able to vet brokers properly and not dealing with some of the bad players there.
Yeah.
Communication, this internet's thing, I mean, you can communicate really quickly, and there's a bunch of places you can check as a carrier. I always say, if you're going to start working with a new partner, Google them first, see what kind of reviews are out there. Maybe look at the load boards and see what people have said about the broker or the carrier you're going to work with, that kind of thing. Do your research. Don't be in such a hurry just to make a decision because you need that load, but take a few minutes to do the quick research and have a plan every single time. Hey, this is what I'm going to do every time I get offered a load. I'm going to go here, here, here real quick to double check myself and make sure everything is on the up and up. I'm going to check with my factoring company. I'm going to Google them. I'm going to look on DAT reviews. So there's got to be a process that you take to avoid that fraud. The biggest thing for a driver, owner, operator is to look at the bill of lading that they get. It's usually a red flag if you don't get a bill of lading, but if you look at the bill of lading and your carrier name is not on there, that's a red flag. If the broker that's on there for billing is not the broker you got the load from, that's a red flag. If it's not going from and to where they said it was supposed to go, that might be a red flag. If it's local California to local California, that might be a red flag, because that's where they reroute it to a local warehouse in California and then steal it. Happens in Chicago too. It happens in all the major cities, but mainly in California. But like, pay attention to the bill of ladings, what's on them. That will help cut down on the fraud. But the technology is out there. People just need to know that they need to invest in the technology, especially from the broker side. We use My Carrier Portal. I highly recommend that system. It's user friendly. Carriers love it. There's Highway, there's RMIS, there's quite a few other ones out there on the broker side. From the carrier side, definitely work with a factoring company. Even though you're giving up some of that percentage, they are going to keep you safe, at least initially, until you can get your feet wet and understanding what's going on out there. So
Fantastic, man. Thinking ahead, you've got a lot of industry experience to look here. Thinking ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, and this may be one of the same, maybe separate. What changes do you see come into the industry, and what changes would you like to see come into the industry?
Well, AI is coming for our jobs faster than we want to believe. And so that's why we are really in the forefront of trying to get AI into our platform so that we can stay in the game with that a little bit. Because if you're not using technology and you fight it, it will displace you really quickly, right? Like, people want to put their head in the sand and they want to be like, oh, I'm never going to use a TMS. I'm never going to use technology. This is not what I want, right? I'm never going to use self-checkouts at Walmart, right? Like I love it. I mean, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to go in, get my stuff and leave, right? Like, so a lot of our customers want that now. So shippers want to just be able to go online, get a quote, book the shipment, truck shows up. The Uber effect is real, right? Like,
Yeah.
we want convenience, we want speed, we want accuracy, and we want it to be this quick. And so there's a lot of people that are still putting their head in the sand, not only with social media marketing, but also with technology platforms and AI. But I'm telling you, if you put your head in the sand too much longer, you're going to be out of a job, especially in this industry. So that's where I see 5 or 10 years. I mean, self-driving trucks are out there, they're running the roads. Do I think that takes over at scale? Maybe in 10 years, it will definitely displace a lot of the carriers or the drivers at least. But I don't know that it ever will fully, because you still got to have local deliveries. You still have to do the specialty stuff, the inside deliveries and all those kind of things, picking up packages at residentials, all that good stuff. But without there, from Kansas City to Denver, a 53-foot trailer driving down I-70, that's the straightest road in America, with a self-driving semi, it's going to happen, right? I mean, it's already happening in Texas. It's already happening in California and Arizona and New Mexico, I believe. So it's going to happen. You can't fight it. So figure out a way to stay in it, right? Like we were talking about earlier, educate yourself on AI, educate yourself on tech, educate yourself on Bitcoin and all that stuff, because it's coming and you don't want to be left behind. No matter how old you are, I'm almost 48 years old. I'm learning all of this stuff, teaching myself, because I know it's coming and I don't want to be out of a job in 2 to 5 years because I didn't at least learn it, adopt it, some of it. You don't have to adopt all of it, but at least learn something.
Yeah. Fantastic insight. Now, you mentioned early on, you kind of grew up around trucking. Your parents had a business. You've been involved a long time. You've had your own business for 20 years. Within all that, has mentorship played a role strongly that, still impacts you today in business? Or, what is your feel on mentorship within the industry?
I was late to the game, to be honest with you, when it comes to mentors. I had looked at it for many years. I went to college, got a business degree. I looked into it a couple of times and it was very expensive, right? So business mentorship is expensive. It can run you $10, $20, $30, $40,000 per year to get someone to mentor you, someone that's done it before. And so I stayed away from it a really long time. I luckily, a couple of years ago, there's an organization here in Kansas City that does it for free. As long as you're accepted and you go in and you present to them, and they assign you 3 people to mentor you. So I started that program about 18 months ago. It's been fabulous and it's been free to me. So your local libraries, your local small business associations in your cities will have free mentorship. You just got to find them and get in front of them, start going to those. I mean, Kansas City's this is one of the biggest entrepreneurship cities in the country. We've got the Kauffman Foundation. We've got the Johnson County Community College. We've got KU real close. So there's so much free resources that I wish I would have taken advantage of a long time ago, because it could have helped me catapult my business a little bit quicker. But as far as mentoring, you got to approach people the right way and ask the right way, because people that ask me to mentor them, or, give me 30 minutes of your time, I just want to ask you a few questions, I'm all for it. Like, I'm here to, help people grow. And I say this, and I think there's a lot of people who say this, it's never expecting anything in return. It will eventually come back and help you out in the long run. So I'm willing to help people today, because I know in the future it probably will be karma, and I'll get something out of it. Maybe I don't do it for that reason, but I understand. I'm a big believer of positive energy and big karma guy. So I definitely say do the best you can to be a mentor for somebody in this industry, especially because the better we can make people in the industry, the easier everybody's job becomes, right?
Nailed it. Man, we've touched on so much today, and I think we could probably go another 6 hours. You've got so much knowledge in there.
Appreciate it.
If we could sit down with someone new today that's, just started as an owner operator, has those ambitions to become that fleet owner and grow it out, what's some advice that you would give them right now?
Just take a picture of your hair now, because you won't have any later. I'm just saying. But really, probably start somewhere else before you try to go out on your own and really understand how the business runs, because trying to do this without that knowledge is really difficult. Not impossible. Some of the best business owners in trucking have probably started from scratch and done it themselves and figured it out. but also find somebody that can help you, right? That has done it before, that's maybe local to you, that you can take out to lunch or take out to breakfast and just ask questions. But do your research. That's my biggest thing to anybody that wants to get into this industry, is do your research first and spend a lot of, I didn't start my freight brokerage just out of a whim. I went out and done a lot of research and bought a lot of books on how to open a freight brokerage and what was all required and what it was going to take. And I understood also that it was going to take 3 to 6 months or a year to build a book up. So I had $20,000 in the bank to help me pay my bills, at least initially. So,
Right.
just do the research and get someone to help you along the way. Find that person before you go out and get your MC and DOT number. Don't get that and then be like, okay, now what? Right? You should already know by the time you get your MCDOT number and your insurance and all that. You should know exactly what the plan looks like. I've got this relationship with these 10 brokers already. They're going to definitely work with me from day one. And then I know in 90 days, 6 months, or a year, I can work with these brokers. And I also have these direct shippers that I have identified in my home market that I can work with. So, just do your research. Number one.
Brilliant. We've covered a lot today. Anything you feel like we've missed out on that we need to throw in here?
No, not really. I think I appreciate you again having me on and letting me share some of my knowledge with your fans here. But look forward to seeing the video come out. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, I know you'll put that up here at the end. But just do the right thing all the time, and you'll never have a problem in this industry. When you try to start cutting corners or you try to get greedy, it will bite you in the butt really quickly. So.
100%, man. And we're definitely going to get it all linked in the show notes below, but I want to give you a chance for those shameless plugs, man. How can people find out more about you, link up with you on LinkedIn, company website, all that?
Yeah, LinkedIn, it's just Steve Vest, V as in Victor, EST as in Tom, but all my social media is the same. It's NTWD Equip Trans, TRANS. So Nationwide Equip Trans. Transportation is the company. You can find us anywhere on social media, big NET logo, so you can see that. And then, that's how you find me. And if you have a question, send me a DM. I answer every single direct message people send me. People think that's crazy. My wife definitely thinks it's crazy, but I get hundreds a week and I answer them all. So
love that. Well, man, Steve, I want to thank you so much for us being able to take some of your time today. I know time is money, so really, really appreciate you volunteering up some of that for us to tap into that lived and learned knowledge. You've given us a ton to work with.
Yeah, Alex, I appreciate your time too. I'll look forward to seeing you at the next freight event.
100%. Thank you for all you do for the industry, man. And everyone out there, thanks for tuning in today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hit up all the links down below. Go check out Steve. And until next time, stay safe out there. See you later.